Robinson here with Seattle Real Producers, the show, and I'm joined by Beth Traverso with Remax. How's it going?
Great. Thank you so much, Shay, for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I'm honored to have you. Seattle Real Producers, we feature the best and brightest in the business, and our March cover feature is you, and we're just excited to have you. We'd love to know a little bit about kind of the area that you work in, your brokerage, and is it a team or is it just you, and what does that look like?
Sure. Yes. So I'm a team leader, so it's myself, and I have 3 agents on my team and 2 admin. My base of operations is really out of Fall City, which is just a small town just east of Issaquah and Sammamish. And my focus really is on rural east side properties, so Snoqualmie Valley, acreage properties, places where people want to be able to get into the city, but they also want to be able to kind of get away from it all and have a little bit of a rural lifestyle, which I enjoy personally and can really relate to. But they need to be able to get into town when they want to also. But it's just kind of like people who want to sort of have that sort of less urban lifestyle, more connected to nature, et cetera. And so that's where I've built my business, and it's been thriving now for many years. I am out of Remax Northwest, and part of that network. And yeah.
Awesome. So I know that you used to be in Ballard. And now you're out in Fall City. So what's for you, what's the best part about kind
City
of
girl
removing yourself?
Went to the country. Yeah, it was a big shift. And it's almost like as an agent, as if I had picked up and moved to, it might as well have been a different state or a whole different market. It really did feel like starting over from zero. And there's things I love about both. I mean, I grew up in Seattle, graduated from Ballard High School, love that area, still do, always will. And there's a lot of great things about that too. I love the historic homes, the walkability, the everything that you get from that type of lifestyle. But then I ended up, I married a country boy with trucks, and I had no off-street parking, and it wasn't going to work. So we knew we had to find something that was going to work for both of us, and our family as we grew it, So that's kind of how we landed in Fall City, which I honestly didn't even really know where it was. And I had to be convinced at first, but then once I saw it, I've been a convert ever since. And it's worked out really well for us. Now we're on 5 acres and got a great spot there with our now 3 kids, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, but definitely a shift. It's different in not just a different marketplace, but then for real estate, but also just all the things that go along with rural living that you never think about when you're living in the city. Things like well and septic and land use and stuff like that. It's different.
That's really cool.
Fun.
I'm definitely jealous of the views that you get
right.
on like a regular basis, but it's really cool. And obviously, I think it almost kind of strengthens your skill set when you're able to come from a city setting and have both a background in, when you can serve both types of clients, and also when you do have the clients, as we've seen in the pandemic, who are they've been in the city and now they want to get out of that and they can work from home.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that a little bit as well.
Huge. I mean, it was started even before the pandemic. There was a trend toward that, but it's definitely increased significantly in the last year with that exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of a cool time in a way, that in the aspect that people are redesigning their lives, like the way they want to live it. So people are just kind of thinking about what their best life is and how they want to do that. And so, we do work with a lot of clients who say, for example, like selling in Seattle or wherever, and then moving out to the Snoqualmie Valley area. And it's exciting to see. But it is good to be able to have that reference and experience where I can say, hey, I did it. And, here's some of the things I wish I knew when I was green, and just kind of guide them along, or, give them resources or just knowledge of like, here's how you deal with X, Y, and Z. There's definitely a big, I've definitely seen a lot of increase in, people wanting to have a little more space, a little more, mountains and trees around that they can see. And yeah, I just certainly do have fun, posting pictures of the view. Kind of feel like I overdo it sometimes, but it's hard not to when you're surrounded by so much incredible beauty. Like last night, I just saw like this incredible light. I could see it glowing through the windows in my office. I'm like, what's going on? I had to get out there with a camera, and I took a few shots. Within 10 minutes, it like totally shifted around the valley and changed colors, and then went away. And every morning, I look out and I see, like the mist across the valley, and you can kind of see the days taking shape, and it's different every day. And I really, really love that. So, I love being able to go to the city when I want to, but there's something to be said for just enjoying the incredible beauty that we have around us here in the Northwest, and really feel a part of that. So
I was going to
really
say, you
enjoy
probably really had no idea going from Ballard to out to Fall City, like what you were getting into. And
I
now,
know.
It really is getting to kind of connect with nature and still get to do what you love. And
it really is a dream come true. And some days I can't even believe it even exists. Like that I get to live this wonderful life helping people live their dreams and move to the area. But then just driving through the area, seeing like, okay, we have Snoqualmie Falls, and then you go through a field of elk with Mount Si in the background and the sunset glowing on the mountains and all of this. I just drive through the river, by the river, and not through the river, but drive by the river, right? And I am just grateful every single day that I get to live in such a beautiful environment and help other people live that life too. So it's very intensely rewarding. So
that's
awesome. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of what your business looks like from are you a buyer? Are you predominantly sellers? Is that a mix? What does that look like?
It's a mix. So I work a little bit I'm about 60% seller and about 40% buyer. I like to do both. I feel it gives me a good perspective to see, when I'm working with buyers, it helps for me to be able to explain to them what I'm seeing on the listing side, because when you see what's going on both sides of it, it makes me a little more well-rounded, and I've got the perspective from both. A lot of my clients, they're selling and buying. It's not necessarily one or the other. Mm-hmm. So, and I like to keep my skills sharp and not do just one role.
Yeah.
And the agents on my team, they'll jump in, and they tend to be more buyer focused, but some sellers too. So just depends on what people need. We just kind of meet people where they are and help them with, what they are trying to accomplish, whether it's buying or selling.
So obviously, this market is, something like maybe we've never seen, even comparing to 08, 09. Mm-hmm. How has it been for you? We were just talking, off air about a first-time buyer getting an offer accepted, which sounds like a fairy tale for some agents right now. So how has that been for you, kind of navigating what a buyer is gonna go through this process, and how do you kind of guide them along the way?
Right. Yes. And so the guidance is going to change sometimes week to week, because the market does shift really quickly. But the data is slow. The data is like turning a big ship. Like by the time everything closes, it's 30-day-old news at least. Mm-hmm. So by the time we see the press releases, it's not going to be current news anymore. So what I'm seeing is like the boots on the ground in the trenches. And so I'm able to guide them on here's what to expect. And I've never seen a market with quite the intensity of demand and low inventory. I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of markets, and just one of the interesting challenges of this career is that it's constantly changing. And what's happening now won't last forever, but where we are today is an intense seller's market, unlike anything me or any other veterans have ever seen. And so, and it really started right after New Year's, is when we saw it crank up. The demand, the buyers are ready, but the sellers not. They're still getting their houses ready for sale, or just not wanting to move yet. And so it's just created this intense demand for every single house. And so that can be scary for people who, especially for first-time buyers. It can be scary for anybody, but especially for somebody who's never done this before. And so they really need somebody to guide them through it. I never want anyone to regret their decision or like what they had to do to get an offer accepted. So part of my role is to counsel them and help manage the risk, like for these first-time buyers we're just talking about. We did a pre-inspection on the house before the offer was presented, so they were able to they could do their due diligence in advance. We've been coaching them on what to expect as far as how much they need to go over and working with their lender to make sure the numbers would work for appraisal gap coverage, which is a thing that we're dealing with on every deal lately, and ways we can work with what they've got to really maximize the strengths of their offer. So, and it meant basically like looking at a lower price range because we knew that everything is getting, and everyone's doing that math right now. It's like, well, we want to pay this number, so we're going to look at houses at this number with the intention of going up to their max.
Yeah.
And that's what we had to do. And it worked. But sometimes, the part of it also is just letting them know sometimes it takes a few tries or more, because sometimes you do everything you can and it's not to be.
Have you gotten to that point with any buyers where it's like it might be better for them to wait because of their price point? Or I know that's not an easy conversation for either party because you are trying to do your job, but it's also you are counseling them. And have you reached that point with any of your clients yet?
I have, yeah. I have some who've decided to continue to rent for a little while because they just don't have the ability to compete with what's going on right now, and or they don't want to. Like, I don't necessarily think somebody should risk all the funds that they have, to put in a super aggressive offer, and then if it doesn't work out, they can't buy a house. Like that's not. I want to make sure that it's something that's that's gonna. I don't want anybody to like make risks that don't make sense, like they will find a house, and this market is not going to last forever. I think it's going to, I believe it has to at least plateau at some point here. I don't think it can continue skyrocketing forever, so it's like, maybe just take a breather, chill for a little bit. I have several people who just kind of decide to sort of take a back seat for a little while, and I think that makes sense sometimes, and for me, I'm always about when the timing is right. It doesn't matter to me if somebody purchases right away or 6 months or 2 years from now. I have some clients now that I've been talking to for years, and that's okay. We just become friends with this process, and
exactly.
Part of me doesn't want it to end, because but then we just like, well, now we can just be friends, after they buy their house, But it's like you get to know people after working with them for a while, and if people are in different tracks and different paths in their lives, and some have an urgent need to buy right now or sell right now, and some people don't, and that's all fine. But I have it's always their decision, I never tell anybody what to do, but I just kind of help lay out their options and kind of discuss it with them to see, let them make their own informed decision about what they want to do.
Yeah. So. No, I almost look at it's like, it's a, this market is almost like a product of our society where it's like everything, you need it right now. And it has to be, everything is so instant. And so people are rushing to make these snap decisions, but then it's like, isn't your goal to be in this home for a decade or longer?
Yeah.
But you're making your decision, and the process is so different where, in the past you could bring your family in to see the home, and you could drive the neighborhood at different times of the week.
Yeah.
And now, you don't have that luxury. So
I know, and with the complexities of showing during a pandemic, we only get very short showing windows. And so in very popular houses, there's been some where we literally could only get 10 minutes in the house at night. And like, that was the only time. And it was like, I was joking, it's kind of like speed dating. Like you're running through the house, like, is this the one, And it's like, well, I don't know. I need more than 10 minutes, and sometimes that's not going to work, So you need a little more time to think about it, imagine yourself there. And so, it's interesting. But I'm all about, like, if it's not right, it's not right, and not forcing things, and things happen in their time, and things always do work out. Like, I've never had somebody who really wanted to buy a house and had the ability to buy a house that didn't buy a house. Like, it happens. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. Things do change, and one thing I've learned after all these years is just there's never any constant. We're constantly getting curveballs of all different kinds, so
so
that will continue. Yeah.
Speaking of curveballs, there's always disruptors in this market, and a few weeks back with Zillow and purchasing showing time, I know that there's a lot of different opinions, especially when it comes to real estate, on what is good and what is positive and who's at fault. And I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts, from that standpoint. Do you think that it, like, I've heard some agents saying it makes the process easier because you can schedule showings and you don't have to do the back and forth, but then there's the sharing of information, and do you have any kind of take on that?
Yeah, so I think showing time is one of the best things to happen out of all this COVID market that we've had. I mean, there's been I'm not saying COVID has been a huge disruptor of everybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
One thing it did change was it got our local Seattle area realtors all on the same page as far as scheduling showings through showing time. We never did that before.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine going back to the way it used to be. We're so inefficient where we had to call sellers, and to imagine a seller right now trying to manage all, there is no way. It would just be just a hot mess,
Yeah.
So it's just, it's really been a godsend in that now you can go on and schedule your time, and it's an automated system, and it's great. So I really liked that. And the fact that Zillow bought it, I don't lose any sleep over that. I don't know if I'm in the minority or not on that, but I just feel like Zillow's gonna Zillow. They're gonna do their thing. Zillow has built this amazing platform that the consumer loves, and hey, good for them. They've got their business, and I've known them well for a long time over there at Zillow. And one thing I can say is they're very focused on giving the consumer what they want. They want to give the consumer what they want, and they want to smooth the process out. Some people vehemently disagree with this, but I don't feel like they're trying to push agents out. I think I've talked to them, and I know that they know the human role of it. But then there's the other stuff. It's like just gets in the way and clogs up the process, such as scheduling a showing where you have to call the seller and da-da-da-da. Like, nobody likes that part of it, like, why not streamline that?
Yeah.
And I just work on building my business and taking care of my people and working on my own, everything that I need to do to strengthen my core business to where I'm not really concerned about what any platform or brokerage or anybody does. I feel like there's plenty of room in this marketplace for all different business models. And if somebody wants to do the push button thing and a door opens with nobody there, I mean, I don't see that working for most people because they need somebody to guide them and provide insight, which an app isn't going to do. And there's also the emotional part of it and walking people through all the should I this or should I that, or there's far more to it than just the tech side of things. But the tech side of things is great. I think if there's ways you can smooth out the process and take away the red tape that nobody likes. I don't like red tape. If there's a way we can make things more smooth end to end, I'm fine with that. And I don't fear Zillow or any brokerage or model or anything. I welcome all of it. Honestly, it's like it's a fair open market. And ultimately the consumer is going to win, hopefully, and that's as it should be. I think so. I think if agents are providing the service and have a strong business that's built on a strong foundation, I think they're going to do great no matter what.
Well, it's refreshing to hear that, right? Because I'm fortunate to the people that I'm interviewing are, it's basically the top 1% of agents. And again, we know there's a lot of opinions, but at the same time, there's plenty of houses and plenty of business. And if you only focus on your own business and you kind of put those blinders on, it seems like those are the people that are successful and right. They're going to end up paving the way. I also think there's also like you're almost a therapist for these these clients, and AI and technology and an app is not going to allow you to the emotional side like you hit on. It's just we're still people and we're still governed by our emotions and there is a business side of it, but I don't see the need for such incredible agents to all of a sudden not be needed in this market.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
And then we hit on COVID a little bit. Obviously, a lot of people have had to change what they do or pivot or learn how to navigate. If you could point to one or two things that in the last 12 months were like, I never knew I could do it like this? Or, what have you learned kind of about yourself and the way you run your business?
So I pretty much had to fast forward on a lot of the virtual tours or virtual tools, I meant to say, including virtual tours, which I've been doing for a while. But basically, so when the pandemic first hit in spring of 2020, they shut down house showings for a little while there. I don't know probably 2-3 weeks, something like that, where I couldn't leave my house to do anything real estate related. Yet I had all these clients and listings and like, what are we going to do? And people still had to move. It was a real chaotic time trying to figure. And so people either had to run and hide or like pivot and figure out, okay, we have this challenge here and need to be met. How are we going to do this? And so, I had one client who, I listed a house that I never saw with sellers that I never met. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Like, I didn't know I could do that. And so, like, we did the tour through, like, my initial walkthrough happened through, like, a FaceTime type call. And then followed it up with I did my listing presentation over Zoom with a shared screen and, did all that. And then, you can sign all the contract documents over, electronic signing, so literally I did go there eventually, it's not like I never went to the house, but it was it was well into the process by the time I actually physically went there to the house. But you do what you need to do. And now everybody's leveled up on that, because it's not just what I'm able to do, but I need to have, like, my clients need to be able to do the Zoom thing too, and like know how that works, or and now everybody does. If anything, people are getting burned out on all of that now. It's a bit of a backslide, but it is nice to know, for example, like, hey, if we don't want to drive out to like have this meeting, we just drive an hour and go meet this place, we can just do it over Zoom.
Yep.
And I've done a lot of listing presentations over Zoom now, where I thought before, like, oh, you just got to be in person for that. Like, there's no way you can communicate what you need to communicate. But you can. I just kind of coach them up front about, like, you need to be on an actual screen, and you need to, like, have the video on and all that, because I learned, I did one where somebody was they had their phone, and I was trying to do a screen share, and I couldn't see them, and it was hard to engage, so it's like you learn, you kind of, you tweak your process, and I'm always doing that, so that's something that never changes. But, so I would say just the shift to doing things more in the virtual realm. Although I found that most people still ultimately, for house buying, like, they still want to meet in person and see the house in person. I don't think there's too many people, at least in our market, that are buying houses totally sight unseen. Like, they still want to see it. So, but then the other thing that we did, we just talked about, like, the showing time thing of, like, scheduled showings and, keeping people kind of separated so there's not too much, interaction, and keeping things safe, and then just kind of like managing that restricted access. From a listing agent, I've had to pivot a bit too, in that once a house is on the market, it used to be just like a free for all, if it's a vacant house, which I try to make them vacant at least while they're on the market. It's like anybody could just come whenever they wanted, and you'd have all these groups just kind of going all over the house at the same time. And now we can't do that, so just trying to manage it to make sure that everyone still has a chance to access the house, and making sure the seller is prepared for what that's going to be like. I've been encouraging people to get an Airbnb for a week and just kind of go away and just let the process happen. But a lot of what I do is really just kind of like setting expectations up front of, like, here's what works, here's what I have found it works, making sure they're okay with that we're all on board with the plan, so they know what to expect, all the way through the process. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. When I think about, like, going back to what it was before, yeah, I don't think going forward, even after all this, I don't know, I don't think everything's ever going to go back to whatever normal, I don't know, but things have definitely changed. And also, people have realized that, you can do a whole lot from home, like pretty much everything from home. like had a conversation. I was on a Zoom call yesterday, one of my many Zoom calls of the day. And I was asking my team members, because was going to I'm speaking on a panel, which is an awesome thing. And I was like, hey, what do you think? Like virtual background, which is kind of, I don't know how I feel about those, or see all the clutter behind me. It's like, which one should we do? And it's kind of like, nobody really cares about the clutter anymore. It's just kind of like, we all acknowledge like, hey, it's real life and we're at home and there's probably kids here and, stuff happening and, it's okay. And so I think everyone's just kind of just sort of, eased into that a little bit, like, yeah, I think everything's kind of like a little less formal.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember I think it humanizes people to know, that they are at home and it is real life. But I even think back a couple years ago, there was a guy doing a Zoom for, like on CNN. His kid came in the room and it was this big deal, You can imagine that's like, that happens 100 times a day.
I know. Now you're like, there's somebody screaming, sorry, or, there's a cat walking all over me, it's just, that definitely is something that has changed. And, it's not a bad thing, people can just sort of be themselves,
I also think it's funny how you can never please everybody, right? Like the day I met you, I went from Issaquah to Kirkland to Bellevue to Everett to Mill Creek to Seattle. And it's like now I can do that all on Zoom. Well, before, of course, we would have been complaining about traffic and tolls. And now we have Zoom fatigue. It's like, is there a middle ground, where we can find, what is easiest and most comfortable. But it's
just about options, at least there's that option now.
Yeah.
So we can just decide like, hey, do we want to do it this way or do we want to do it that way? And like back to the clients and how their buying patterns have changed. It's like, well, now they can decide like, do I need to go into Seattle for this meeting or can I just do it on Zoom, And if I can do it on Zoom, then it doesn't really matter where I live because as long as it has decent internet, I'm good to go, So
yeah, it's
true for everybody. Yeah. It's just different for everyone now.
No, and so for you and looking at kind of your story, which is our goal really with Real Producers is to share people's stories that you can't Google. And I know for you, you started as a real estate agent. We talked about you took a hiatus, really to focus on being a mom, which is not an easy transition.
Right.
And I think even during the pandemic, people are like, oh man, I had no idea how good our teachers were for doing this every day.
Yeah.
But then, now you've gotten to a spot, in 2020, per the MLS, I had you at 57 transactions and around 47 million in volume. And that's in a year, when there was so much disruption. And can you point to anything like whether it's mindset or I remember you talking about, doing Tom Ferry coaching where it really catapulted you from being kind of an agent that, you were an agent, but you weren't seeing the success that you would like. And then when you got back into it, are there a few things that you are like, you could point to and be like, yes, that is, or these couple things were really what got me to where I am today?
Yeah. So can I back up to the beginning?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so yes. So when I started in 1998, the real estate landscape was completely different than it is now. Like speaking of Zillow, like they weren't even around, and all these online portals and stuff weren't even a thing. I remember by every Wednesday, we had to submit our print ads for the Seattle Times open house spread, stuff like that. I know I'm really dating myself. We used Thomas guides for map and all that. Oh gosh, feeling so old. Anyway, I was able to, make it happen through just word of mouth and just sheer hustle of just meeting people at open houses, random stuff, whatever interested buyer I could get. Or seller, but it was mostly buyers. And, I made a living and it was okay. And then 2008 happened, where everything just kind of went down the tubes, nationally from a real estate perspective. And that was right around the time that my first child was born. And then we had a couple more. And I basically decided, and that's also when we moved from city to country. So I'd making multiple transitions. And so I was just sort of like, okay, I don't know what to do with this market, and I just need some time to just recoup for a little bit and just focus on my kids, etc. Which I did. And it wasn't like I stopped doing real estate. I still was selling, but just kind of like just whatever fell in my lap, more or less, you know, which was fine for that time. And then it came to a point around 2013 when I was like, okay, I need to do something here with this, you know, I need to restart this real estate career. And like all of my previous business in Seattle, you know, and that whole, everything I'd built over there, it seemed like that had all, when you don't nurture something, it just kind of dries up and blows away like leaves. And so I had to start over, and I didn't know how to do it. And I always knew I had a lot more potential than what I just didn't know how to like unlock the door, so to speak. Like, I know I can do this. I just don't know how to do it. And that's so funny. That's when Matt Van Winkle, owner of Remax Northwest, he cold called me like out of the blue. He doesn't do cold calling anymore. He's got other people that I think do that. But he just sort of like, hey, have you thought about, moving, doing, building your business? I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, have you thought about like, really making a go with this business, And I told him like, yeah, I've been sort of on, a bit of a hiatus, but I think I'm ready to do this. I just don't know where to go or who to talk to. And he's like, well, we should talk, And so we met, and I remember part of our conversation was saying like, we know that you know how to be a great real estate agent, but we just need to teach you how to be a business person. And I'm like, oh, that really clicked for me, because I'm like, that is true. Because like, I know how to serve my clients well. I know how to do a real estate transaction well, but like, it takes more than that to be a business owner. Like, you have to have a business. And so he helped me lay out my business plan, where it's just sort of like every week I would just focus on one thing. Like, okay, this week I'm going to focus on working on my online presence, claiming your profiles for free online and filling them out and doing the things. And it's like, okay, I can do that in a week. It's like, I'm all about like breaking things down into bite-sized chunks. One of my favorite mentors, if you will, is like Darren Hardy, and his compound effect was just like so simple, but yet so radical. It's like, really, you don't have to be a Superman or Wonder Woman to do this. It's really just a matter of just consistency, moving in the right direction, and just build a little bit here, a little bit there. You see a hole and you plug it, and you build something out that's working. This thing's not working, so you stop that. It's just constantly just building a little bit, and it's always ups and downs, but then over time, just builds like the snowball. And so that's what I started doing around 2013, and just started treating my business like a real business, and investing in my business. That's the other thing too in real estate. A lot of people don't realize, like, well, you have to spend money on overhead to, because like people aren't even going to know that you're there and that you're a good agent if they don't know you exist. And so that involves marketing and other things. And so, I was setting aside money for that from every transaction, and just, because like when somebody has, for example, like a bakery, like you have to pay rent on the space, and you have to, buy the flour, or just, I could go on and on with that analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to buy tables and stuff, and like you have to spend money to have the building blocks that your business needs. And so that's what I did, and that was a real game changer for me. And I'm working with my coach at Tom Ferry. He's been awesome. I just talked to him on my way before I got here today. Nice. We still talk every week, and he's still helping me every week, give me the swift kick when I need it, and so, because that never ends. There's always a challenge, and for me, I always believe like you have to be growing. Like, if you're not moving forward, then you're going to move back. So it's just been a constant growth, really. So, and my business has certainly, benefited from that. And I don't ever believe in getting complacent or anything like that. Like, there's always, as we were just talking about, there's always going to be new things to work on and change and improve, so.
Yeah. I remember you talking about your pipeline was very important to you. You always wanted to make sure that there was something that was, that was coming up or that was next. I'm sure that hasn't changed since you told me that, but has it evolved a little bit with the way the market is, or is it still you just, you have buyers and you want to, and your listings, and has that changed at all, or is it really just the bigger the pipeline, the more you have, coming up next kind of deal?
Well, to make sure I understand the question, you're saying like, yes, I'm always focusing on my pipeline, and that is something that never ends, because there's always going to be cycles, market cycles, et cetera. Like wintertime tends to inventory dips and things get slower, and then the springtime starts to ramp up. And but the more you it's all about consistency, and I'm sure a lot of people you talk to will say the same thing, because it's like, if you're not consistent with your efforts, we in real estate are known for the roller coaster, where it's like you get busy with some clients and you work, and then you get them under contract, and then they close, and then you're like, now what am I going to do? So it's like, then it goes down because you weren't working on building the pipeline while you were working with your clients that you had under contract, for example. So there has to be a constant cycle of bringing people in, and then, helping people and closing those deals, and making sure, if you continue to focus on those activities that move the needle, so to speak, then, you're going to have that consistency in your business. And part of that for me, a lot of that for me is automating the marketing as much as possible too. I want to make sure it's personal and in my voice and everything like that, but I also need to make sure, like, it needs to happen whether I personally decide to do that one thing or not. Like, it's going to be like, my assistant will just like show me something like, why don't you proof this marketing piece before it goes out? And I'll be like, I don't like the way it says that. I want to say this instead. I want it to look like that. And okay, do you like this? Yeah, it's good. Go. But it goes out every month, for example, or just consistently every, or I just make sure whatever I'm doing, that it's just always going, whether I'm doing it personally or not. And it just kind of while I'm sleeping, the marketing machine is moving, and people notice that consistency too, because a lot of it falls off the radar. There's a lot of lack of consistency out there in our industry, and the when it comes to marketing and branding and being out there. People tend to not stick with it because it takes a long time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It takes years. So
no, and what I was always taught was it was 3 years to farm a neighborhood before you ever saw a result out of it.
It's true,
and that takes a lot of mental discipline. And we even joke with our company that you're either consistent or you're non-existent, right? And so
like that.
And so I am curious. I remember you talking about rental properties before. Is that still part of, you still have rental properties with you and your husband?
Oh yeah, so that's one of my passions, actually. So we're constantly working on different projects. We have several going right now, and just got under contract for our next one, which some people like my mom think I'm crazy. I think I am crazy. We are crazy. But it works, and it's, I think the more you do, the more you can do, and so we just kind of keep that challenge going. But it definitely is a part of it. That's our retirement too, so it's like the real estate sales provide an income that can then be used to invest in purchasing real estate. And then, it's a skill, we've been doing it we've been investing for about 18, 19 years now, so it's one of those things, like, you start a little bit, you get one thing, and then you just kind of slowly build on it over time. It's the same as the real estate business, but we've kind of got our niche now. My husband has a construction background. He's been everything from electrician to utility contractor to kitchen, bathroom, whatever, so it's like, that's been a tremendous resource where, like, we get a house and he and his crew can fix it up, and just making that happen these days is a bit of a challenge, because contractors and anyone involved in home improvements in high demand. And so we've managed to, accumulate a decent portfolio, nothing, super huge, big time, but definitely good for us. And it's something that, makes me feel, a little more secure about retirement years too, because when you're self-employed, like, you have to make that happen on your own. So
Yeah. Does he give you a good rate when he does work for you?
It all comes out in the wash, so
I'm sure. So is all that stuff local, or do you have any out of state properties?
We dabbled in out of state when we bought down in New Orleans before, but then that was like 6 months before Hurricane Katrina hit, and that just kind of soured us on that. I mean, that was that's a story for another time. But for us, it really has to be something we can get to, within an hour drive.
Okay.
So, I mean, the Seattle market is tough for investors, no doubt.
Yeah.
But there's still, if you know little pockets, and we as real estate professionals, we see things, and you got to learn to like find the ones that fly under the radar. Like, there's quirky things out there. Like, sometimes I look for the ones that like won't qualify for financing, for example, in an up-and-coming area that maybe is not being like super oversaturated yet. We look for things that are kind of on the lower price point in a higher price point area, because I know there's always room for upside there. Yeah. Or there's something about it, like there's been a zoning change where now you can redevelop this property in the future or build more on it or something like that. Okay. So
cool.
That's kind of I just kind of have my radar constantly scanning for things like that. And every once in a while, it just like, oh, look at this weird thing that popped up. Can we work with that? And if it meets that criteria, then I know, this is maybe something we can work with. So
that's
it's
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because I can tell you're passionate about it.
Yeah, it gets me really excited. It's like that's one of those things that doesn't feel like work. Like that job is not a job, and actually my real estate sale is not a job either. Like when you're doing what you love, you just do it regardless, So
that's great.
I feel really fortunate.
So obviously the husband in the construction background, you're busy, and then 3 kids at home. What does the balance look like for you guys? If there, maybe I shouldn't use that word, but what does it look like?
I mean, it definitely, working on that balance is important. Especially in real estate, because it's one of those careers where there's no hours of operation expectation. Like we're expected to be available not just during the day, Monday through Friday, but also every evening and all weekend long. And how can you do that? And so that's part of where my team members come in, that's one of the benefits of having a team, is that you can have that extra support, and they get it too, So it's like, and everyone on my team has kids, so it's like we all understand what that's like. And so, for me, I schedule my work around the family things, and I make sure that we have time set aside we talked about road trips, and how we love to do road trips. And so we make sure we can do that. And that is one cool thing also about like having things more remote, like there's a loan officer I know who like, he just drives around in his RV. Slinging loans left and right, he's a superstar, and he lives out of it, he's cruising the country in his RV, and like, wow, he's living the life, So not that I'm going to do that, but like for a week or two here or there, like, I mean, you absolutely can, work remotely, even in this business. You just have to have people here on the ground to step in and do the things that need to be done on the ground. But it's a matter of delegating and structure. And it's always going to be a little bit of chaos. And I mean, there's no escaping the chaos. Yeah. But I think it's just a matter of just defining your priorities and scheduling around that, because this is an industry and a business that can just take over. It can consume your entire life if you let it. So I think it's important to not let that happen and keep it constrained a bit, and it totally is possible. And your production does not need to suffer because of that. I found that to be true. And that's always one of those, fears, like, well, if I don't do that, then I might lose a deal. It's like, no, not if you communicate about it properly and have the right systems in place.
So let's go back to the very beginning. So started in 1998. And was there something that like catapulted you into real estate?
Yeah. So I was pretty aimless, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't feel like I had any skills, no college degree. It's like, what am I going to do with my life, you know? But I always did good in school, and I always knew I was like, on the smarter side of things. Not to say I'm like a genius or anything like that, but I knew like I had decent capabilities, But I just had no idea what to do. And I I ended up, I bought a house, and, people might kind of get angry at me or whatever, but like I was able to buy a house in Ballard for $125,000. So it's like, it was possible back then, working at the Sorrento Hotel where I worked, and my dad's art glass studio, which is pretty awesome. But it's like, I was able to have that and like get a house. And I did something. Now they have a cool name for it called house hacking, but back then it was just like you get a roommate or two, and they help pay your payment, so that you can, have more freedom. So that's what I did. And then after that process, I loved looking for the house. And so I was like, this is something that's really fun. Like it was just, and then my friend that I worked with, she was like, hey, I'm looking for your house too. And so I was like, oh, great, let's find your house, And then she's like, okay, I found this house and I like this house. Now what? I'm like, well, I guess we need to find you an agent, And I was like, hey, wait, maybe I should be that agent. I think it was my dad or somebody said like, maybe you should do that. And I was like, okay, and, not really knowing, what it entailed or, how to do it. But I just, got my license and signed up with a little boutique company and over by Green Lake and, off to the races. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I asked that for a reason because now, 1998 to, to 2021, what would you say, and we've obviously touched on it a little bit, but what would you say is like, what drives you to like, I know you enjoy it, but is there certain aspects of it that really like fire you up every day and just keep you yearning for more and to do it every day?
Yeah, just the challenge. I love the people. I know that might sound a little cliche, but it really, really is true. Like, I get to meet and hang out with the coolest people and fun people. And it's just, I get into it for them. Like I feed off their excitement or like, going out and exploring and looking at properties. I love that. Or like people have a big problem they need to have solved. Like we need to get from this house to that house. And like we have to prepare our house for sale. We don't know what to do or what not to do. We don't know how to navigate all this crazy offer stuff going on. And how do we buy our new house when we have to sell this house? And it's like a puzzle that needs to be solved. And so I love just basically like having those tools to help them put that together and help them do that. I feed off of that, like the logistics of it, and everything's different. Everybody's needs are different. I'm really good, I think, with the emotional part of it too, because I think that's something that we touched on a little bit earlier, but it's a huge part of this is like, I think the people that are most successful in this business are the people that really understand people on an emotional level and are really sympathetic to what they're going through, because there have been studies that show that buying or selling a house is as stressful. It's right up there with death in the family and divorce. Like it is not a joke. And it's like, wow. And that's part of the reason why I like push button buy house. I don't think that's ever really going to happen, because of all of that. It's where people live. It's where their kids are or their mom died or who knows what kind of, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
And it's very personal. It's like, where am I going to live? Like that's a really big thing. And so I feel really, I take that on as like my duty is to guide them through that and make sure that I'm doing the best for them to get them really what they need, and it's never going to be like a stress-free process. I don't think that's possible, but like if I can say like, here's what we do, like we have a plan for this. Oh, this crazy emergency popped up. Let me call my person. They'll be out there today to take care of it for you. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Like that just brings, down the stress level and just helps people know that, okay, we can do this. And so it's extremely rewarding for me to know that I can do that. I can help guide people through this transition time, which is exciting and it's scary and it's all those things all at once, so it's just I like that. If it was just if I was just punching a clock every day, just counting my hours, like I just don't think that would be as rewarding for me as what I do. And so that's what fires me up. And then the relationships is getting to know people, through this, people that I get to know professionally or people that I, my past clients that just they just become friends, and we, stay in contact and it's really cool. So, and just seeing people's lives change and grow and just being a part of that is a really, really big thing that drives me and keeps me going. So,
yeah, I think when agents say the people, it can sound cliche, but I also don't think that if you're on the outside looking in, that you understand you're a huge part of lasting memories and how that memory starts out. Is that process smooth? If you never want to buy a house again because it was just brutal the whole way along. So I think that's it's a testament to you and the business that you've done. And I always like to ask, if you were to tell an agent that was just getting their license today and starting out in this kind of market, what would be like one or two things that you would, is it writing a bunch of offers? Is it doing a bunch of open houses? Is it finding a mentor? What does that look like in your eyes?
Yeah, so I would definitely say finding a mentor. And for a lot of people, what that is these days is sometimes joining a team. But you got to make sure the culture is right too. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure it's going to fit for how you want to do your business. But that is a great way to get a lot of experience because there's a lot of facets to this that a lot of people getting into the industry or outside the industry, they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And the best way to do it is just to get out there and get as much experience with people and contracts and properties. You just got to dive into the deep end, and I think that sometimes being on a team is the best way to do it because that way you get exposed to a lot of people. You can help out with all aspects of a transaction. For a lot of new agents, it's hard to get clients in the beginning, so it's just hard to get that experience if you don't have the clients. Mm-hmm. But then also the experience of generating that business is a bit huge because if you don't have clients, you don't have a business. And so learning how to generate business is a really big thing. So you need to have resources either through your brokerage or a coach to give you that practice and know what to do to find people and find people to help, and then what do you do when you have them and how do you follow up after, all of those things. So it's a very complex business, a lot more than what people see on TV, of course, and all those other things are just not real at all. But so I would say probably join a team, or if they don't want to join a team, I would say at least, look at coaching or make sure the brokerage that you join provides a lot of resources as far as business building and processes and all of that. So somebody that can, hold your hand. And I would also say, for new agents, they really need to, you got to have your runway because it takes even the best agents, it often can take 6 months to see a paycheck. I know it did for me. And then you got to be ready for the ups and downs. You might get I made a whole bunch of money from this sale. And then it's but then I didn't make anything for 3 months. It's you have to be very good you have to be disciplined with money too. So you need to have that, start laying out that framework for it also. So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Beth, I want to thank you so much for coming and being part of the show. And we want to thank Jayco and I'm Third Studios. And I wish you a wonderful 2021 and all the success in the world.
Thank you, Shay.
You're welcome.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
We'll go air high five.
Yeah, right.
Air high five.
Boom.
All right.